Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, um, Thursday, November 13th, 2025. So hopefully everybody's getting through the week pretty well. We're, of course, going to, give people a chance to come in before we get started. Did watch some cartoons earlier today, including, so in my cartoon watching right now, of course, I'm in the middle, I'm into August of 1942. Around that time, of course, Paramount was making the transition from Fleischer Studios to Famous, their own, cartoon studio, as it were, as it become apparent that Max and Dave could no longer work together. Their disagreements had gotten the best of them. So, saw the very first Famous Studios production of a Popeye cartoon. You're Sap, Mr. Jap. This is a cartoon you won't see on TV anymore due to the some of the racial stereotypes against Japanese people that was in it. Of course, you have to also understand this is also from a time when we were at war with Japan. Um, anyways, what else? What else shall we look at here? Um, Also, of course, in that time period as well, there were a number of, most of the studios were doing cartoons at time. They would, slip in some, wartime propaganda cartoons, including a Looney Tunes classic called The Ductators, in which the dictators of the time of Hitler, um, Mussolini, and um, Hirohito were all portrayed as ducks, basically trying to take over a barnyard. So, and then you had, of course, Pigeon Patrol, which was the last, at least not the initial cartoon, Cartune, series from Walter Lantz Productions, in which character introduced in that cartoon, Homer Pigeon, tried to become part of the carrier pigeons, only to only to only to be told he was too scrawny, but ended up making an important delivery anyways. Of course, and a friendly reminder to everybody: if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. And now that we do have some people here, and we're coming up on 4 minutes, might as well talk about what's on tap for tonight. I have three stories I'm going to go over tonight. Um, One from That Park Place, and the other two from Me TV Tunes. So the first story we're going to talk about is South Park, and I guess ever since the beginning of the season this year, South Park's ratings have been dropping, and and a lot of it's being blamed on the fact basically their overemphasis on attacking Trump, TDS humor, and emphasizing what I know Jeremy Hambly, aka the Quartering, would call gross humor, right? Um, you know, um, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk, after that, that's probably the more serious article we'll probably cover. And then other two articles we'll cover on Me TV Tunes. If you've ever wondered how they came up with the Smurfs theme song, la 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 la. Well, you'll find out as they talk about that in one of the articles, and then um, and in what is apparently an example of some method acting, we'll get a chance to see an interview done um, with the two actors, with the actor and actress who did the voices of Zan and Gina from the Super Friends cartoon, Michael Bell and Louise Williams. As they talked about, they actually, during their time when they would be, I guess, during their times when they'd be doing the recordings for the Wonder Twins, they actually would do the fist. If you guys remember from Super Friends, of course, how Zan and Gina would activate their powers as they fist bump each other and go, Wonder Twin powers activate. And then of course Gina would go form or Zan would go form of this, and then Gina would go shape of that. So it's like so those are the three articles we're gonna do tonight, and then we will, of course, we'll do the rest and wrap up. Take a look back at last night's Blood and Guts Dynamite. Look ahead to tonight's TNA TNA Impact. As I guess this will be the one they're doing a live Impact tonight. Will be the final. I guess it will be quote unquote the go home Impact before tomorrow night's Victory Road pay-per-view, so we'll see how what they're planning on doing to set all that up tomorrow night, as there hadn't been much set up for it thus far. And then we'll finish things off, of course, with this day in Needs history. So with that being said, one last friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, so we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. This goes for both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers as well. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Let me go ahead and pull up the first article of the evening from that Park Place. Which, of course, is going to talk about. Of course, they're going to talk a little bit about the situation going on with South Park right now. As again, as we, and I know Jeremy I know the Quartering's been talking a lot about this too, and how, basically the creators of South Park just become so suffering for so much TDS that, they're just totally tanking their own show over it. So let's get into this. So South Park creators defend Trump jabs, say they're just mocking pop culture. I don't think nobody really believes that. They've been going after Trump. They haven't, granted, there has been some thought, like particularly years ago, where they would apparently say they'd be going after both parties, but that's not the case here. You didn't see the same kind of treatment for Trump that they didn't give Kamala Harris or Joe Biden the same treatment they gave Trump. So anyways, let's get into this. So South Park creators defend Trump jabs, say they're just mocking pop culture. Article published yesterday by Trevor Denning. So let's see what Trevor has to say here. South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker don't want viewers to think they attacked Trump out of any personal animosity. Well, I think that boat's already sailed, buddies. Anyways, according to Variety, the pair recently sat down with the New York Times to explain their approach. Quote, we're just very down the middle guys, unquote, Parker said. Any extremist of any kind we make fun of. We did it for years with the woke thing. Um, this was hilarious to us, and this is hilarious. Okay, so now, as even the Quartering pointed out when he covered this story too, they did one episode on woke, and they've had numerous attacking Donald Trump. You know, earlier in the season, they had him basically, they had Donald Trump in bed with Satan and basically becoming pregnant with Satan's baby. And then, now, and Jeremy I guess, Quartering was covering, I guess, last night's episode, and I guess they decided to do bed humor again, or gross humor, whatever you want to call it, where you'd have Trump and JD Vance in bed together. So go figure. They don't. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't suggest doing that to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. But doing it to Donald Trump, that's all right. So why is the show now in its 28th season what Variety calls a series of, quote, full-blown Donald Trump takedowns, unquote? Quote, it's not that we got all political. Yes, it is. It's that politics became pop culture, unquote, Parker said. He notes that there were conversations about tackling other topics, but, quote, there's no getting away from, in brackets, MAGA. No, it's just that you made the choice to attack MAGA. And I know Jeremy today was even talking, Quartering was talking today about the idea that they could have gone after both sides over the shutdown, but they didn't. They just decided to just give us another, and apparently there was a lot of news coverage on it, how people were, quote unquote, traumatized at the thought of them putting Donald Trump and JD Vance in bed together. But the funny thing in that though is, as left, as I would think that there would probably be a few LGBTQIA plus advocates who would probably not be too fond of that particular angle either. Just because and it's something I don't think even Quartering would have probably thought of here, but trying to depict Trump and JD Vance in some kind of homosexual relationship, I would think would probably make the homosexual community feel like they were being vilified in a way. Because if you have a lot of people in that community who think that Donald Trump is Satan incarnate, or of course the dictator, the last dictator of Germany, you would think they might have a problem with it just being compared to him, or being in the quote unquote in the same boat as him, or just a thought that crossed my mind just now, in fact. But as we continue on here, so many lament the change, noting that South Park was often at its best when lampooning other aspects of pop culture. The 2023 episode joining the Panderverse, which skewered Kathleen Kennedy's leadership of Lucasfilms, and gave us the line in smaller quotes: "Put a chick in it and make her lame and gay." Okay, on smaller quote, has itself become part of pop culture. Yeah, I mean, I think more people would be receptive of South Park if they did, in fact, go after both sides. But this season has primarily been about going after Trump. Again, they don't go after Democrats. They don't go after they didn't go after Kamala on all this. They didn't go after Joe Biden. They could even go after they could even go after AOC and Jasmine Crockett and Zoran Mandami and Gavin Newsom, but they choose not to. You know, so. But from the duo's perspective, those days are over. Quote, it's like the government is just in your face everywhere you look, unquote, Parker said. Now whose fault is that though? Whose fault is that? I don't think the Republicans are really trying to put it quote unquote put it in your face. You know? I mean one of the reasons why of late we've probably been talking more about it is because of the shutdown. And who was responsible for the shutdown? It was the Democrats. The Republicans kept voting on the continuing resolution to keep the government open. The Democrats sat there I know normally I try not to get too much into politics here, but facts are facts, folks. Facts are facts. You know. So, anyways, and of course, since they want to talk about how we're not political, we're down the middle of this and the next thing. The evidence would suggest otherwise. But anyways, critics, however, have been quick to note that this is a recent development for the pair, who took it comparatively easy on Presidents Obama and Biden, which is true. We didn't see anything. We didn't see any major hits on those two, did we? Flashback. When they avoided Trump. In 2017, Hollywood in Total reported that Parker and Stone were being shamed in the media for not making enough Trump jokes. For season 21, South Park writers decided to back off on Trump, in part because everyone else was already mocking him. It was a decision that resulted in multiple think pieces criticizing their choice. So maybe that's another reason why they decided to go with more Trump jokes here, is because they're much like what some people have said that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer were trying to do. They're trying to appease the more radical base, as it were. But quote, one comedy show, decides that there's nothing more to mock about President Trump, and the knives come out, unquote, Hollywood in Toto said at the time. One might ask where those knives were when South Park more or less ignored Biden and Harris, while there were fewer episodes produced between 2021 and 2024. Screen Rant said of the 2022 season that, quote, it felt like they were going through the motions, unquote, with satire. When the 2024 presidential election was ramping up, Parker and Stone decided to sit it out completely, hinting that Paramount's impending sale to Skydance created complications. He also added that after doing 4 or 5 elections, it was less fun. So, even though Biden had dropped out by that point and Harris seemingly offered plenty of comedic material, Her word salads, folks. The South Park showrunners only mentioned the former president. According to Variety, Parker told Vanity Fair, quote, I don't know what more we could possibly say about Trump, unquote, while never acknowledging that Harris was also on the ballot. Apparently, after Trump's re-election, they realized they had more to say after all. Yeah, well, the fact is that Trump has been winning in courts over defamation, so they might want to be careful here. Albeit he can't go after them for like these hippies as much as I'm sure a lot of people want him to, but because it is it's satire, therefore it's protected free speech. Taboos. The duo claim that they are remaining true to the spirit of South Park. I don't know about that, which has always been about parodying whatever is taboo. Well, then go after Democrats. That would be, start mocking the Democrats. Start making fun of the Democrats. That would be taboo, especially now with how mainstream media caters to them. Quote, Trey and I are attracted to that like flies to honey, unquote. Really? Okay, Stone said. Quote, oh, that's where the taboo is. Over there. Okay. Then we're over there, unquote. Really? Yeah, okay. If you believe that, and I've got some swampland in Florida I'd like to sell you. In the New York Times interview, Parker and Stone said they always intended to go after Trump in the season 27 premiere last July, that they haven't stopped since is proving wearisome to some fans. Well, basically, in doing so, and only going after Trump and not going after Democrats, they once again are they're basically doing what mainstream media has been doing for a while, and it's basically flipping the bird to about half of your audience right there. Parker and Stone are trying to position themselves as, quote, very down the middle guys, unquote, simply staying afloat when all of pop culture has gone political. They even suggest that Trump's time in the White House has forced the show's storyline onto its current trajectory. Well, I mean, they could still go after Democrats. They're just choosing not to. Quote, if there's one thing we know, it is that our show will be a lot longer than, in brackets, Trump's administration, unbracketed. So we just got to do this for now, unquote, Parker said. Yeah, and while you're doing that, your ratings are tanking. People are running away from it. Even the Quartering has admitted that even though he decided to give the show a chance last night, while he liked the B story, as it were, the non-Trump story, the whole Trump JD Vance rendezvous just kind of spoiled it for him. So ultimately, how long South Park lasts and how long its audiences keeps laughing may depend on whether viewers still find politics funny. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Again, I think after a while, I think going after just one side and not going after the other, not being an equal opportunity humorist, as it were, you're just attacking one side of the political spectrum. You're basically flipping the bird to half of your audience, and eventually it's going to lose half of your audience out of disgust, and the other ones will probably ultimately get bored, with the same old every single week. So, you know, but Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they can continue shooting themselves in the foot and lose half their fans, and run their show into the ground faster than you can say Mississippi. So, anyways, so that was the serious story of the night. So let's go and take a look at some more, let's say, fun stuff. And again, a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will try to answer the questions to the best of and I'll try to answer the questions best of my ability. So, anyways, now we're gonna get on to maybe some more information, more lighthearted stuff. As we just get away from the more serious stuff. So I don't know I don't know how many Smurfs fans there are. Many of us grew up whether you were watching them on your local NBC station on Saturday mornings in the first half of the 80s, or in syndication in the latter half of the 80s. The Smurfs were quite an enjoyable cartoon, kind of a nice little getaway for people, I believe, and is to this day, as of course MeTV Tunes, of course, is showing those classic episodes. Let's see. All right, so how the Smurfs got their iconic theme. So if you've ever wondered how the Smurfs got their theme song, well, we're about to find out here. La 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 la. Published November 7th, which, let's see, was almost a week. It's a week ago tomorrow, so 6 days ago, by MeTV Toon staff. And I've known that this story's been up there, but I've been waiting for a few more stories, because these MeTV Tunes articles tend to be pretty quick reads a lot of times. So, they're like nice little puff pieces, as it were. So, in his memoir, From Mr. Magoo to Papa Smurf, a memoir, Gerard Baldwin discussed his extensive career as a cartoon producer and director at Hanna-Barbera. Baldwin is the one who was chosen to be, as he phrased it, the guardian of the Smurfs. Fred Silverman, then president of NBC, saw Smurf toys at a toy store in Colorado and learned of the popular brand. Silverman made it his mission to include the Smurfs in NBC's Saturday morning lineup and tasked Hanna-Barbera with bringing it to life. Hanna-Barbera selected Baldwin, who had proven himself as a director on Herculoids and Super Friends, and seemed like the perfect fit to recreate the world of the Little Blue Guys as a cartoon. Of course, the Smurfs were originally characters in a Dutch comic, originally starting out as Johan and Pee Wee, and then branching off into their own thing. Most of us remember Johan and Pee Wee more supporting characters in the Smurfs, but the Smurfs were originally in the comics supporting characters of Johan and Pee Wee. Again, go figure. The first issue Baldwin faced was that certain executives at NBC were not excited about the Smurfs joining their lineup. Baldwin recalled, quote, all I was certain of was that the Smurfs were charming and unlike any of the slam bam stuff like Super Friends that was being fed to America's children. The folks at NBC were totally convinced the Smurfs had no appeal. I don't know if that's I wouldn't say that's true because the Smurfs again they lasted for 8 seasons. Even you know they went into syndication, still had a solid run in syndication as well in reruns. You know, for many people. So and and because they weren't the as he put it slam bam action adventure series. They were more of a like kind of a comedy drama comedy adventure series. That I think did have some appeal. It's kind of like okay, you just saw Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman just beat up the Legion of Doom for the umpteenth time, and now we're gonna kind of calm things down and go to Smurf Village and see what they're up to. See some of the like lighthearted, whether it's watching Greedy, cooking his cakes, or Hefty showing just how strong he is, or Vanity staring into his mirror all day, or even being charmed by for the longest time the lone female Smurfette, or seeing what adventures the Smurflings could get into, what little trouble they could get into. Baldwin jumped into creating the pilot and said, and since the Smurfs takes place in the Middle Ages, he chose classical music, specifically pieces by Vivaldi and Beethoven. The music was selected because Baldwin wanted to set the tone for kids, letting them know that they are going back in time, the Middle Ages. Now that sounds cool, right? The immersion aspect of it, and music and cartoons have always had a very interesting partnership, going even all the way back to the golden age of the theatrical shorts, right? Music was always a big. I mean, if you remember some of the series, back in the early days were named out. You had Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, Happy Harmonies, Silly Symphonies, Swing Symphonies, musical miniatures. So, Color Rhapsody, So, so music and cartoons always had a very interesting partnership, to say the least. Let's see. All right, so yeah, back in time to the Middle Ages, classical music sounded old and would signal to the viewers that this story took place in the past. Finishing the pilot, Baldwin presented it to NBC, which it immediately showed it to a test audience of children. The pilot tested well, but Mickey Dwyer, the vice president of children's programming, wanted one major change: no classical music. She argued that kids liked rock and roll, and they didn't like classical music. Well, I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't do that. Obviously, for those of us who grew up on it. I mean, again, I think the classical music that they used there was actually something that benefited the show. It was really, When Baldwin tried to argue for the importance of classical music in a show about the Middle Ages, Dwyer allegedly responded, quote, Gerard, if you put any classical music on that show, I'll break your arm. Boy. Again, you know, that would have been going too far. Most of the show's music budget had been spent on the now banished classical music, so the Hanna-Barbera team now faced the challenge of quickly coming up with their own theme song. Well, okay, so I guess they did well, I don't think they got rid of it completely. They still, because the music wasn't really rock and roll, okay? It was had more of a classical feel to it. But coming out with their own theme, Baldwin worked with Hoyt Curtin, the main musical director of Hanna-Barbera, and they struggled through it. Quote, in parentheses, Curtin, in parentheses, was having difficulty finding an old piece of classical music, just the right musical phrase and tempo would express the spirit of the Smurfs. In the midst of trying out different songs, Baldwin remembered the storyboard that showed the Smurfs lined up in a parade and had a eureka moment and said, quote, how about la, 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 la. They created the theme song from there, and the rest is cartoon history. Watch the Smurfs on MeTV Tunes Sundays at 5 p.m. for Central. Let's see, 2 Pacific. Now, as I understand it, because of the fact MeTV Tunes right now is doing their 'Tis the Season for Tunes specials right now on Saturdays and Sundays. Sundays are starting at 2. So I think aside from the Smurf Christmas specials, the Smurf is getting preempted right now for the Christmas specials. So, but anyways, so we got one more article we're gonna, of course, go through here before we as we finish up. Let me see here. So we got one more article we're gonna do, which is this one right here. And this is obviously getting into the whole idea of method acting. You know, when they will incorporate something from whatever somebody's doing within a play or a production into their actual work or so the Wonder Twins voice actors fist bumped in the recording booth. The voice actors were friends before they were superheroes. Article published today by MeTV staff. There's a picture, of course, Zan and Jaina right there from the Super Friends opening. And if you all remember, Wonder Twin powers activate, right? So, in a series of interviews with the cast and crew of Super Friends, Mark Noble spoke with Michael Bell and Louise Liberty Williams, the voice actors of the Wonder Twins. Bell and Williams had been friends before becoming Wonder Twins, having met through Bell's wife and Williams' groundlings buddy, Vicky Carroll. Okay, so Michael Bell, of course, aside from Zen, um, had a pretty storied voice acting career. Also, he was in G.I. Joe. He was like Duke, and was Duke, Major Blood, and Toll Booth in G.I. Joe. In Transformers, he'd of course play Prowl, um, Bombshell, Swoop, um, First Aid, among other characters. So, and Sideswipe as well. So anyways, even though they knew each other, Williams admitted that she felt a little intimidated by the other cast members. Quote, and even when I got cast and went in, I didn't realize until later that Mike and Casey Kasem, in brackets, were part of it. Now, Casey Kasem, of course, everybody knows him, aside from, of course, radio personality for his work on America's Top 40, as well as, of course, he also had a number of different, again, another voice acting veteran. Of course, most notably as Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo franchise. Let's see. He was, I believe, Alan in Josie and the Pussycats. He was Robin in the Super Friends cartoon, of course, what we're talking about here. Teletran 1 and Cliff Jumper and Dr. Arkaville in Transformers. So, anyways, we're part of it in brackets. These were pretty well-known guys in this part of the profession. At first, I didn't realize I was working with celebrities in their field, unquote. Gina was Williams' first voice acting role, whereas Bell had years of experience in acting in cartoons such as the Hound Cats and the new Scooby-Doo movies. Yeah, so both actors auditioned with Hanna-Barbera and didn't realize they would be working together as twin characters. They saw each other at the first table read, and their friendship eased Williams' worries while laying the groundwork for Zen and Gina's relationship. Noble asked the question that's been on every Super Friends super fan's mind. Did they ever recreate the iconic Wonder Twins fist bump in the recording booth? Wonder Twin powers activate. Right? According to Williams, yes, all the time. According to Williams, yes, all the time. In quotes here, I think pretty much every time, unquote, she answered. Quote, it got your energy up. So talk about implementing a little bit of method acting right there, right? That's what I believe what method acting is, when you actually incorporate something from the production into your session there. I mean, that sounds kind of cool. You imagine sitting there, even if you had a chance to watch them in their recording, and all of a sudden they go to fist bump, and it's like, what in the world are they doing? And then you realize later, oh, they were actually fist bumping because in the cartoon they fist bump too. Imagine during every, quote, Wonder Twin power activate, unquote, two voice actors were fist bumping behind the scenes. Another fun fact, after the interview, Noble helped Bell and Williams reunite in 2011. They even recreated the Wonder Twins fist bump. Man, I would love to see a picture of that. I know. Of course, aside from his voice work, I know one of the other things that, some niche fans, particularly those in the sci-fi realm, would probably remember Michael Bell was from the premiere episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where he was Groppler Zorn in the two-part opener encounter at Farpoint. So watch Super Friends on MeTV Tunes weekdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 Central, and of course noon Pacific, 2 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. Pacific. Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. Oh, there you go. All right, so that's all we got for the news articles tonight. We did run quite a bit, so yep, I'm glad we did that. So with that being said, of course, now we're gonna move on to the wrestling wrap up. We're gonna take a look back at last night's Dynamite, go over that, look ahead to tonight's Impact, as it's going to be a live Impact tonight, preparing for tomorrow night's Turning Point pay-per-view. Look at all that. Of course, with tonight's Impact being the last Impact before the pay-per-view, it will be the go-home Impact. So we'll also take a look, of course, at what's going on Ring of Honor Club tonight. But first off, let's take a look back at let's talk a little bit about what happened on last night's Blood and Guts Dynamite. See what went down there to get started. Okay, so on last night's Dynamite, Blood and Guts special, which of course was held at the Fort Horizon Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina, as they continue their build towards next weekend's, next Saturday's Full Gear pay-per-view. So you had Bryan Danielson, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. In the women's Blood and Guts match, you saw the team of let's see, the Death Riders, Marina Shafir, let's see, Megan Bain, 12 belt Mercedes Moné, and the Triangle of Madness of Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Tekla defeated the face team of AEW Women's World Champion Chris Statlander, Harley Cameron, Jamie Hayter, Mina Shirakawa, four-time AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm, and Willow Nightingale in 46 minutes 9 seconds. Then in between the two Blood and Guts matches, you had in a non-title count, a Fall Count Anywhere match, AEW World Champion Adam Page defeated Powerhouse Hobbs of the Ops. In the men's Blood and Guts match, the face team of Darby Allin, Roderick Strong, and the conglomeration of Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Kyle Riley defeated the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Jon Moxley, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta. So that's all we got for that. So now, and also it was also reported that WWE is already planning for next year's WrestleMania. No major announcements on that yet, obviously, but they're now already starting to go on that. So now, with that being said, of course, now let's move on to what's going on tonight's events. First off, we'll take a look at what's going down on Ring of Honor Club tonight. Coming from the Bayou Music Center in Houston, Texas, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. Tonight you'll see in action Lance Archer of the Don Callis family taking on Aaron Solo. You'll have the Swirl of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson taking on Will Alday and a mystery partner. Then Heian and Maya World, recently coming off of their appearance on Collision, will be taking on team of Ring of Honor World Champion, Women's World Champion Athena and Billy Starks. Dalton Castle and the Outrunners will be in action, taking on Warren J, Zachzilla, and a mystery partner. In a mixed 8-person tag team match, you'll have the team of Skyflight of Scorpio Sky, the Martin brothers, Top Flight of Dante and Darius Martin, and Layla Gray, taking on the M&M TV of Johnny TV, Mansoor, Mason Madden, and Taya Valkyria. In a Ring of Honor Pure Title Proving Ground match, in which if the challenger wins this match, they'll get a guaranteed. So in the Proving Ground match, you have a match where the champion has to defend against the opportunity. So Lee Moriarty will be taking on Willie Mack. If Willie Mack can win or draw in this match, he will have earned a shot at the Ring of Honor Pure title. And the main event setup will have the Spanish Announce Project of Angelico and Serpentico taking on the Don Callis family members of CMLL's Hechicero and Rocky Romero. So that's all going down on Ring of Honor tonight. Now let's take a look at tonight, what's going down on tonight's live edition of TNA Impact. Let's see, as tonight's TNA Impact, as soon as I can grab that. So tonight's TNA Impact will be coming from the Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, on Access TV. Still, as we talked about last night, the only 2 matches signed for tonight's live show thus far are our prime Cedric Alexander taking on the Good Hands Order 4, the Good Hands Jason Hotch. Oh, Great Hands now, I guess I should say. And then Danny Luna and Indy Hartwell will be in action as well. Now, also, of course, let's see. I believe they have at least a couple matches. So tomorrow night's Turning Point pay-per-view will be taking place on TNA Plus from Full Sail University in Winter Park. Only match signed thus far for that is TNA World Champion Mike Santana teaming with International Champion Steve Macklin to take on the team of Frankie Kazarian and Nick Nemeth. So there we go with that. So anyways, that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up tonight. That's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up tonight. So, let's see. So now, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and move on to this day in each history. History! So, today is, of course, Thursday. Today is Thursday. Today is Thursday, November the 13th, 2025. Of course, we're 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving here. So, and as you, unless you guys want me to, but unless I hear from you guys that you guys actually want me to do a show, as has been for the history of the Mikestand, we will be taking Thanksgiving night and Friday off. We'll be taking those 2 days off, so you can spend time with your family. Unless, of course, you guys come back and tell me you actually want me to do a show, then I guess we can do show, come up with something. But aside from that, but anyways, with today being Thursday, November 13th, 2025, go ahead and take a look back at this day. Niche history. So 75, 2005, 2000, and 2015. All right. So first off, I'm going to head back 50 years ago, as on this date, 50 years ago today. This date 50 years ago today. The 180th issue of Mad Magazine from EC Comics went on sale on this date back in 1978. So 50 years ago today, the 180th issue of Mad Magazine from EC Comics went on sale on this date. Sold for 50 cents. Was 48 pages. As everybody knows, this is a comedy slash satire comic magazine. So that happened 50 years ago today. Moving ahead to the year 2000, as soon as I clear all this out. Moving on to the year 2000. On this date in the year 2000, on PBS, the Arthur episode, Mitzi's Bow, airs. This marks the earliest depiction of Mr. Ratburn getting married, but only in a fantasy sequence as being straight. His actual marriage occurs in the later in the later episode, Mr. Ratburn and the Special Someone over 20 years of being closeted. So I think in 2020 they aired an a kids show on PBS, mind you. Okay, where they basically aired an episode involving a gay wedding. That happened in 2020. But here they depicted him of being married to a woman in the year 2000. That happened 25 years ago today. So, hey, Metal. Let's see. Mad is one of the greatest legacies in magazines. Yeah, I figured as much. So that's why I figured the 180th issue of it was a big deal, obviously. Anyways, now moving on, of course, to the next piece of niche history, as it were. We move ahead 5 years to the year 2005, as on its date in the year 2005, as I was reminded earlier today, was the unfortunate passing of AAA and WWE Hall of Famer Eddie Guerrero. Passed away from acute heart failure on this date back in 2005. It was a tragedy that hit the wrestling world pretty hard. We know that it was unfortunately a contributing factor to Chris Benoit's downfall as well. But Eddie Guerrero was somebody who had become a big star, had basically conquered his demons, and had been been somebody who'd been after being fired, after coming to WWE initially when it was still a WWF, with the other four radicals of Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, or the other three radicals, and Perry Saturn, all of them having, and then being fired after substance issues, and then coming back after redeeming himself on the independent scene. So, but 20 years ago today was the unfortunate passing of AAA and WWE Hall of Famer Eddie Guerrero. So now, moving on to the next piece of niche history, as it were. Actually, in fact, I think we only have one more at this point. Yeah, we move ahead to the year 2015, 10 years ago today. Oh, you see it. Hey, Natsumi. My laptop was updating, but I love Eddie Guerrero. Yeah. Well, anyways, getting to the final piece of niche history here today. On this date 10 years ago today, oops, wrong thing there. Studio 4 Degree C's Harmony premiered in Japanese theater. So Harmony is a 2015 Japanese animated science fiction film directed by Michael Arias and Takashi Nakamura, animated by Studio 4 Degrees C, or 4 degrees Celsius, I guess, and based on the novel of the same name by Project Ito. Film was released on November 13, 2015. A 4-volume manga by Fumi Minato, based on the novel, was published by Kadokawa Shoten in New Type from 2015 to 2019. 2 other anime films based on novels by the same author were released: The Empire of Corpses on October 2nd, 2015, and Genocidal Oregon on February 3rd, 2017. All right, so there we go with that. So with all that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We're back here with more niche news tomorrow, of course. And then this Sunday, I'll be joined by Rex Christian from Devil Flyer Momentum. He'll be joining me. We'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane, going back to July of 1940. We'll be focusing in on books that went on sale from Dell Comics. Among the features we'll be looking at, we'll include Ellery Queen, the Owl. Dell's version of the Owl. There have been a number of characters named the Owl over the years, so this is Dell's version. Phantasmo. Probably hit up maybe Hugh Harmon's Bosco character, as well as Rex King of the Deep and Whitey Harrison. Alrighty then. So with all that being said, I thank everybody for being here, and hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.